Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Season 8, Division 2. We're at the penultimate round, Round 9, in Suzuka, Japan, which served as the finale last season. But here we are, one race earlier. Here's the circuit, classic 5.8 kilometers, 18 corners to navigate. Just the one DRS zone down the pit straight. And it is a fast flowing track in the first sector and some technicalities in the middle. And with only one short DRS zone, drivers will have to make old school overtakes on this classic track. Set drivers up ahead of them, get the overspeed, and make the move without the help of that box in the rear way. Turns 1 and 2, the first of your action zones, of course, at the end of the pit straight. Not a huge braking zone, but with the help of the DRS, the slipstream, really send it down into turn 1, try and make overtakes happen. And then, of course, the Casio Triangle, the final chicane, turns 16 and 17. After coming out of 130R with significant speed, it is the heaviest braking zone, or longest braking zone on the circuit. So moves can get done there. Soft, medium, and hard as always. Medium is about half a second slower per lap than the softs. The hards will be about 7/10 of a second slower per lap as far as lifetime goes. Softs will do about 13 laps, mediums 18, hards 20 in this 27 lap race. I think that's the right number of laps. So look for some mixed strategies out there, as they all three tires are particularly viable around this track depending on your desire for degradation. Here is the Drivers' Championship. Franstuff out in the lead. Ghali in second by just 2 points ahead of us. We still have not gotten an answer from the stewards about our track limits penalty in Qatar, so it is possible we could improve in the stead. Spen still in fourth after having to abandon, and Pathaman rounding out the top 5. So let's jump to the circuit, as it is quite cloudy. We're getting ready to start our first flying lap of the session. There is mixed race on the weather radar, so we don't know whether it's going to be wet, dry, dry, wet. So I will be saving a set of soft tires just in case it is a very short, dry running period at some point in the race. But into turn 1, flat out. Then you hit the brakes for turn 2. Come out, and now into the S's. Nearly flat out, a little lift and a blip down. Keep as much speed and momentum as you can. This little right-hander you have to brake a little bit for. Now up the hill, turn 7. Try and keep the back end in check. Don't go wide on that high curb. And now into the Degners. A quick flick right on the first one. Brake hard for the second Degner. Get the car rotated back on the throttle as fast as you can. You're headed down to the Dunlop hairpin. A quick right-handed kink, and then hard on the brakes. A bumpy braking zone, a cambered corner. So there are some lines you can take through there. And then back on the power, keep that rear wheel in check. A long sweeping set of right-handers as you wind up speed, and then into the famous spoon curve, right about the 50-meter board. Break down, run out wide, then get on the brakes again, get your car slowed. As soon as you see the exit, get on throttle as much as you can. Keep that back end in check, because you're going to need all the momentum you can. Coming up the hill at the crossover and into the famous 130R, flat out left-hander. Slipstream yourself if you're behind a car, and then look for your braking point into the Casio Triangle. Slow the car way down, right, left, and get on the throttle as early as you dare. Coming down this little right-handed sweeper, open the DRS, and across the line. A 28.223 puts us provisionally fastest after our first run of the day. So, as said, I was saving a set of soft tires, so we're at the end of the session here. Just 3 minutes left on another set of softs, so we skip our middle run. And we'll look to improve. DRS is open as we head down the pit straight for the final time. We got nothing but clean air in front of us. Pitch it into that first turn 1 right here. Get the car slowed down. Get on the curb to rotate it. Not as good of a turn 1 and 2 as we had before. Lost about 1/10 of a second. We are trying to make up some time, but the S is not treating us as well as before. We do tuck in a little better, but we are about 1/10 of a second off at the first sector split, so got to find some time in the middle sector. And of course, through Degner 1, Degner 2, we do find some time, nearly 1/10 of a second. We're just a couple hundredths off of our best lap now into the hairpin. A little better run on the entry, not as good on the exit though. You can see that tighter line gets you to the entry earlier, but the exit a little slower. So we are just teetering right around our best lap time. We do have opportunity to improve in spoon. We're going to push a lot harder on the entry for the second part of spoon. You can see the amount of time we've gained, and we're going to carry that momentum a bit up the hill Very bumpy though, so it does rob your car of momentum. And now just one braking zone to navigate before the end of the lap. Got to get the car slowed down just right. The back end can step out. Take as much curb as you dare to help rotate the car, but if you take too much curb, the back end will step out. Little wiggle getting on power, but we find a lot of time on the exit. We improve to a 27.927, back into provisional pole situation. But Ipswich pips us at the last, goes to a 27.8, but we will have a front row start. Pathaman and Franstuff identical times. So here is the setup screen, or the strategy set screen. You don't often see, mostly because the weather is not so. But you see rain coming at the end of the race. We're going to just go as long as we can on a set of hard tires until the rain comes. And then we'll switch on to the intermediates or wets based on what is appropriate. But here we are. 5 red lights are up. Pathaman on a set of soft tires in P3. We don't get a great getaway. We get an okay run. Pathaman is going to have tons of extra grip on us, so we're going to hold the inside line, leave plenty of space for him to sweep around the outside, and we're just going to go ahead and tuck directly in behind. I knew it was a likely possibility that on the hard tire was going to get attacked by the soft tire, but Pathaman is going to have to likely make a pit stop before the rain arrives. The soft tires will not go all the way to the rainy period. So we're going to tuck into third place at the moment in the podium spots. Ipswich in the lead of this one, but Pathaman is going to put some pressure on him with those soft compound tires. We have Franstuff behind us on the hard compound tires, the crowned Division 2 champion already. So we know he's got very good pace, and we're going to have to look out for him. He has a little bit of a wiggle, it would appear, on the exit in our mirrors there of the hairpin. And we are just trying to keep up for the opening stages of this race with these 2 cars ahead. But we go wide onto the exit spoon. High centers the car. You see the back end really step out on us. So we've lost a lot of ground to Pathaman and Ipswich. We're hard on the overtake button, try and get as much straight line speed as we can. He's not going to quite get alongside into 130R. Is he going to have the momentum to go around? He's going to go to the inside of us, and we're leaving that door open. I knew I didn't have a good run. We're going to try and go for the cutback, but he places his car very nicely on the apex of the second part of the chicane, and we aren't able to quite get that big traction down. So we're going to utilize the slipstream, but we're not going to attempt to overtake Franstuff. Still just trying to stay reasonable as Pathaman goes by Ipswich into the lead of this race. We have the rookie driver, Albino Pedro, behind us, who showed up and has shown some decent pace already in qualifying. And we're seeing, getting a first look at how his race pace is. I believe he was, if I'm not mistaken, a friend of Ipswich's, so he vouched for him to bring him in. And here is Albino Pedro taking that second Alpha Tauri seat and already doing well. Wide off the circuit is Ipswich through Degner 1. He's returning to the track. He's got a slow run, so we're going to go through on him. Franstuff also gets through hard on the brakes. We're just dipping to the inside because we were carrying a little too much speed. Have to dive out of it, and now we've got Ipswich on the inside of us. He's going to have the shorter run. We're burning as much battery as we dare, trying to get clear, and we, in fact, do manage to get ahead. So, a little mistake, but we've gone wide on Spoon again. This time, gather the car up a little nicer, but you can see you miss that exit of Spoon, and you really compromise your speed. I'm having to burn so much of my battery. Luckily, Japan is a track where you can recover about 8 or 9% per lap. We do get a very good run on Franstuff, so we actually are kind of caught in a position where Ipswich is forced to kind of go for an overtake. He makes contact with Franstuff, and looks like they both are getting a little wheel spin and checking up, so we sneak through. Albino Pedro is up the inside of us through that kerfuffle. Our teammate Bonhomme has a good run. I can't slow down too much because I'm going to get Bonhomme up the inside. And I've gone a bit wide onto the curb. It sends me wide, and that is going to allow Bonhomme through. Ipswich back through. And Ghali now is through. A driver that we need to be finishing ahead. So that mistake down into turn 1 really cost me by going wide. But Ghali, a little contact with the back of Pedro. It's going to open the door for us to go up the inside, around the outside. I think Ghali had some damage. Oba Mendez now has a run as we're coming up to Degner 1. It's not a corner you want to go side by side through. So we slow down, make sure we get through the corner, and in front of Oba Mendez we go once again. A little contact. It looks like Ghali is off behind us again. And a virtual safety car. And that is a Haas that is stricken out there. So, jumping back to the VSC resuming, we all stayed out. Ipswich picks up a drive-through penalty for speeding under VSC, as does Pathaman out in the lead. Oba Mendez carries right on the back of us, so we're running P4. Ipswich has a drive-through penalty. We've got 3 seconds to catch up to our teammate. And there's already been a ton going on through the first couple of laps of this race. And don't forget, there's rain scheduled for the latter stages of this one. So the excitement is far from over as we are trying to catch up to Bonhomie. Now further back, it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, Zhao, Ghali, and whoever's in the Haas. I believe that's not Oba Mendez. Bananarama, I think, is in the Haas today. Franstuff has gotten his way past Oba Mendez, so within 1 second of us, and he is on a bit of a tear. Ipswich losing ground to us. We've caught Bonhomie by about a second this lap, so for as decent as our pace was, Franstuff is insane. Ipswich into the pit lane to serve his drive-through. You have 3 laps to serve a drive-through penalty, and you can now on the timing sheet see that Pathman also carrying that drive-through. So yeah, you have 3 laps to serve it. Then you'll get DSQ'd if you don't come in. But you see Franstuff has absolutely reeled us in. His pace is phenomenal at this stage of the race. So I am just going to try and catch up to Bonhomie. If Franstuff gets in an overtaking area, a good run on us, then I'm not going to fight him all that hard. Otherwise, we're just kind of going to stick to the racing line and not be defensive at what we're doing. Maybe just try and not get run into. So here we are into the hairpin, and you can see 1.8 seconds the margin to Bonhomie already. So we're catching Bonhomie at a rate of knots. Pathaman has a drive-through to serve. Franstuff is quickest though, but we are in position now essentially to look for a decent haul of points that we definitely need. Come into this race 2 points behind Ghali. So we need to finish ahead of him basically at any stage of this, well, not at any stage. We need to finish ahead of him. Doesn't matter what stage, but you see Franstuff, huge run up the hill. I'm staying to the right. I was going to leave the racing line to him. He tries to go to the right of me and make some contact. That kind of forces me back to the center. So it was an interesting attempt from him. I think he was thinking I was going to go to the racing line and tried to go to the right of me. So a little contact. Franstuff sets fast lap. We just stay on the right side. He's got DRS. I'm trying to make it very clear. I don't want to fight with you. And he has a big mistake through turn 1 and 2 though that costs us a decent chunk of time. We were really reeling in Bonhomie, and now trying to deal with letting Franstuff overtake us has cost us a couple of tenths. But the interesting part is that Franstuff caught us really quickly and cleared us. Ghali sets the fastest lap of the race as he had to make that pit stop for damage. So that helps him run back in. But jumping ahead, lap 8 now. Franstuff catching up to Bonhomie and a full safety car deployed as Zhao is out of the session. So as I had a choice in front of me, I was thinking about maybe diving into the pit lane. It would cost me a little bit of track position. The rain was about 10 minutes out, according to the engineer at this stage. I opted to stay out for track position. At this point of the race, as you can see, the safety car in this lap now, we jump ahead. At this point, I thought it was maybe a mistake to stay out on the hard tires because of how quick the soft and medium tire, fresh softs and fresh mediums were around this track. I was really gambling on the rain arriving quickly. So waiting for Franstuff to go with the restart as he comes out of the corner. And there he goes. He's accelerated. Bonhomie gets a very good jump on the restart on us. And since he's on the soft tire, he's our teammate. I'm not going to fight with him. I'm not even burning any overtake down the pit straight. I'm actually going to lift out early so I can slot in, as Albino Pedro did not get a great restart compared to Bonhomie. So I'm going to let my teammate with the soft tires really go and attack Franstuff. Maybe cause him a little bit of trouble. Maybe force him into a mistake. But you can see the clouds have come, and we are starting to get very dark. But you see the pace that Albino Pedro, Onyx BMO, Onyx behind us have on those mediums. You can see how much Bonhomie is putting the pressure to Fran stuff. These older hard tires, not the greatest tire to have. So into the hairpin we go. I'm kind of covering the inside a little bit just to make sure there's an escape road for those cars that are on quicker tires to avoid crashing into me for the most part. That's the idea. But you can see Ghali now, thanks to that safety car, back up into 5th, carrying fastest lap of the race. We're running a little wide through Spoon there, and that's a big mistake. That's going to put us under pressure. But Ghali now only 2 spots back of us, carrying an extra bonus point for that fastest lap of the race. So in spite of the damage he had early, it's all kind of come back towards him. So Bonhomie, having a little look on Fran stuff, manages to get through into the Casio Triangle. So a clean overtake does allow us to close up to Fran stuff a little bit, but we do have the pressure of Albino Pedro behind us. You're just now seeing the first drops of rain start to hit. So the rain has started to come. And this is the toughest part for me driving at this stage of the race with no racing line. I still maintain my rule that once I pit to put wet tires on, I'll put the racing line on just so I'm not a danger. But you can see I'm having to be so much more cautious in feeling out the grip level of the track. And you can see how much the cars that behind me, also, you know, granted they're on fresher tires, so they have a lot more grip, are going to close up. So once again, just kind of covering the inside, making sure there's that escape road. A little contact, it looks like, between Ghali and Albino Pedro. And Ghali once again facing sideways, but he does have that fastest lap point. And now that it is raining, nobody's going to go any quicker. But we are trying to put some pressure and try and catch back up to Fran stuff and our teammate Bonhomie. We've opened up the MFD, set the next tires to inters. It's just a matter of when I pull the trigger to get into the pit lane and make that change. So leaders stay out, as do we. We haven't come in yet. The track still feels decently grippy at this stage, so we're not coming in. DRS has actually just been enabled. We do see a couple cars diving into the pit lane. That is Onyx, Pathaman, and Bananarama, who are coming in to get onto the inter tires first, as the track is starting to deteriorate.
Okay, be careful. We think you're going to start losing some tire grip anytime now.
But still seems quicker on the dry tire. That was a mistake of my own doing, that going a little deep in Degner too. Just a little deep on the brakes, and we are starting to get caught up. But ooh, big slide, rear locking on the way into the hairpin. A mistake that puts us under pressure from Albino Pedro and that one kid, as the track grip is starting to back off quite a bit at this stage. And we're just kind of mirroring the leaders. I'm kind of keeping an eye on what Ghali does as well. I need to make sure I'm finishing ahead of him today.
We'll be seeing at least 20 minutes of light rain. Okay, dries seem like the best tire for now.
You can hear from the engineer there. Dries still seem like the better tire than the inters for the moment. We'll see what that becomes as we make our way around the entire lap here. But we are starting to get caught up a little bit by that one kid and Pedro. In fact, side by side they're going behind. That one kid gets a very good run in the mirror and makes an overtake on Albino Pedro. So he is up into 4th behind us, as we are still tiptoeing now our way around. You can see the little splashes on the track. Usually a good indicator that we've kind of hit the crossover point. Aside from DRC, you can see how much harder it is for me to keep that car on circuit as we are slowing way down. And the other difference between both the ages of the tires we're carrying and the grip levels, that soft tire maintains its temperature a lot better in wet conditions than the hard tire does. So that one kid has incredible pace compared to me on the soft tires. He's got a good run. We're going to essentially defend to, we're going to try and stick the inside, and the back end steps out a little bit, but he kind of tries to avoid us. by going inside us and makes contact. So we've got to slow up, rejoin gradually. We've lost several positions and probably about 5 or 4 seconds or so of lap time, as the track is very much in intermediate conditions now at this stage. So we're just trying to get ourselves back to the pit lane, but what was looking like on for a very good potential podium at the time is been thrown a bit astray thanks to that contact from that one kid. You know, an incidental thing. I understand. I had made a mistake. The car slid out. So I can't fault him too much for making contact with me, as he was genuinely trying to guess where I was going to slide to and avoid. He thought I was going to lock up and go straight on, but we're going to slow down. We're going to come into the pit lane. Our teammate had just come through, so we have to wait a split second extra for them to get ready. It costs us about an extra second or so in the pit lane. But now we're on to the inter tires, and now, as I say, we're going to go ahead and make the change to bring the racing line on. Just because if I'm trying to judge it all myself, I've found that I tend to brake very early compared to cars around me, and I can be a danger to them. But you see, Pathman and Bananarama both go through. They've successfully undercut by being on the inters for that bit longer than we were when we were struggling with the hards, and of course, the spin doesn't help either. But so we're all the way down in 8th. Ghali now in 9th, so at this point, we're not going to make up the 2 points we need to catch him. Pathman wide off the circuit. We dip to the inside, take advantage of the opening as he has to lift out. And we managed to make an overtake on Pathman, who we have dueled with in the rain quite extensively in Singapore. This time, rather clean maneuver to get by him. Once again, covering the inside, making sure he can't get the run. And out of the corner we go. Now setting our sights ahead for Bananarama. Granted, they did undercut us by getting on the intermediate tires a little earlier. However, that means those intermediate tires of theirs have a little extra wear on them. And there's the other wet tire indicator, DRS disabled. However, track was definitely in wet conditions well before they disabled DRS this time. We're on lap 15, so 12 laps left to go in this race. And we're trying to rebound and start working our way back towards the front. We are catching up Bananarama. We've gotten within 1 second of them. Pathman has managed to stay kind of with us, but a slow exit out of the Casio Triangle for them means we get away. Albino Pedro into the pit lane, and he's going to come out just ahead of us at a pretty unideal spot. We're going to have to slow a lot because we're not going to have quite the momentum to go fully around the outside and avoid a collision. Bananarama makes a mistake, goes a little wide. So now we've got this train as I was starting to run away from Pathman. Now, once again, this train very much in effect as we come through Sector 1. So looking for our openings, trying to pick a spot to dive through. Pedro sees an opening on Bananarama, who's gone a little bit wide, much in the same way we got by Pathman. So we are going to make our way. He's going to make his way past Bananarama. We get a good run on the exit of Degner too, so we're going to go to the inside. This will give us the outside of the corner. And we're going to make sure we go very wide, leave plenty of space, and that should allow us to straighten the exit, straight line the exit a little bit, and get the traction down a little bit earlier. So we are able to make the overtake on Bananarama up into P6 now, and having to set ourselves off after the Albino Pedro, who showed good race pace in the dry stint. We'll see how he handles driving in the wet in this one. Oba Mendez out in P4, 4 seconds ahead, has had a decent drive as well. There's a huge gap up to that one kid up in P3, as well as Bonhomie and Franstuff. So we definitely lost out quite a bit from that spin, but we are trying to, make amends for that and push on. Just try and get the best result we can. Essentially, with the Drivers' Championship decided for Franstuff, I'm just trying to stay ahead of Ghali for P2. But jumping ahead, lap 18 of 27 off the circuit is Oba Mendez, as we had caught up. And him and Albino Pedro try and go side by side through Degner 1. Whether that was particularly a clean move or not at liberty to say. Or really just don't care to speculate. But we've managed to catch up Albino Pedro. 8.5 seconds to that one kid in a podium position. Trying to check on tire wear at this point. Am I going to need to make another stop? It looks like tires are wearing decently, and we do know how quick the fresh version of Inters can be. So with 9 laps to go, I was thinking, well, if another stop does need to be made, I would do it sooner rather than later. We're going to jump ahead though. Lap 21, Ipswich out of the session. A full safety car has been called. So it's going to be a no-brainer with the gap we have to Ghali, who had gotten to P6 behind us. Be a no-brainer to come in and get a new set of intermediate tires. The extra grip will be crucial. The leading 3 are all in the pit lane. Albino Pedro stays out, opts for the track position. And once again, we're going to have to double stack with Bonhomie. So a little extra time lost in the pit lane compared to a fresh one. But we are going to be able to come out ahead as Ghali is grabbing fresh tires, as is Onyx. So we'll come back out in the position we pitted in. And it looks like Bonhomie carrying a 3-second time penalty. That one kid carried a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, it looks like, or 5-second of some kind. But safety car in this lap. Albino Pedro leading the restart. Franstuff P2. And Franstuff peels off the circuit and into the pit lane. So as we restart, Franstuff decides he's had enough. We don't get a very good run at the start as Franstuff is retiring in the pit lane. So luckily we've got Bonhomie putting some pressure on Ghali behind us. But with now Albino Pedro on old tires, that one kid with a time penalty ahead of us, we have a sniff with just a few laps to go in this one of a potential race win. Right up behind that one. We have to check out a lot, actually. That one kid breaks kind of on the exit of the corner. Ghali goes around the outside of us, manages to snag that position, and is ahead. So we've dropped now down to 4th in a situation where we need to be outscoring Ghali. He is now ahead of us. So we've got to try and get our way back through him, having a little look through Degner. We get a good run on Degner 2. A little bit of a slipstream. Are we going to try and pull to the inside? Ghali's going to go defensive. We're going to try and go around the outside of him, use the high side of the track, get the car straightened out, and we don't quite get the job done. We do have some momentum coming out of the hairpin there, but it's only enough to keep our teammate at bay and not to get past Ghali. Now down into Spoon. Ghali very wide through Spoon. He's off the circuit, so we're going to tip up the inside, take the position back from Ghali, and we actually get a very good run on that one kid as well. So we're going to dump the battery as much as we can, burn it up the hill, try and get ourselves fully clear before 130R. He's hanging on right there and just gets clear. We are going to have to lift a bit more than normal to make sure we navigate the corner. But Bonhomie gets through as well, as does Ghali. So running order: Albino Pedro, myself, Bonhomie, Ghali, Onyx. Although Bonhomie carrying that 3-second time penalty just ahead of Ghali. So as it runs, Pedro, ourselves, then Ghali for the podium. But Albino Pedro on those old tires really struggling. A little bit almost of contact between him and I as he's very slow on the exit of turn 2. And at this point, I'm thinking I need to get by this guy. Ghali is putting pressure on. Maybe if Bonhomie could back him up a bit, I get a little bit of breathing space. But you can see just how much blending and lifting we're doing through there. No real way to make an overtake unless there's a mistake from the car head in that section. Now into the Degners, and it's going to be a good break. Good job breaking into Degner 2. We're going to have a little look. Same, try and go around the outside through the kink. We're going to lift out and get late on the brakes. A little bit of rear wheel locking has cost us some momentum. So Albino Pedro right to the racing line. Bonhomie up the inside has actually boxed us in a little bit. But Bonhomie sliding very wide there, goes off the circuit. Little mistake from him, but he kind of boxed us in when we had a run on Pedro. Not the most team play of it, but a good run. But you can see Albino Pedro really struggling on the exit of Spoon. So I'm thinking, here's my chance. Here's where I get him. So battery deployed up the hill, the exit. And I think I was carrying just a little bit less swing than him. So into 130R. We've made the overtake for the race lead. Now we just need to make it stick. Ghali picks up a 3-second time penalty of his own.
Okay, we've got 4 laps of fuel remaining.
So it looks like he's even Stevens with Bonhomie. They're going to have to fight it out. Come on. Cheering my teammate on to try and keep Ghali down in 4th. The better opportunity, if possible, to maximize the point scoring. But you can see the gap we've already made to Albino Pedro. Those dead tires not helping. Ghali gets through on Bonhomie, so he is now up ahead into P3. Won't get past, likely won't clear a 3-second margin to Albino Pedro in this one lap unless there's a mistake. Granted, he does have those very much fresher tires, and he's actually closing up nearly in position to make an overtake on Pedro. You can see just a couple of tenths in it between the two of them. But at this point, with about a 3-second margin, Ghali carrying 3-second time penalty, us on better tires than Pedro. I was driving very cautiously through this last part of the lap, just trying to not spin the car. Ghali does make his way past Pedro into the Dunlop hairpin there. But he's not gonna catch us and clear us by 3 seconds. We'll see if he can clear Pedro by 3 seconds. Pedro has not had quite the pace he needs in the wet on those older tires. But as we're coming up the hill one final time through 130R, yellow flags behind as it looks like a spun Alfa Romeo. But now down gently into the Casio triangle. Make sure we don't lock up. Make sure we don't spin. Through the final couple of corners, ease onto the power as we wait for the car to surely be hooked up. No last corner DNFs. And we take the race victory. And Albino Pedro does stay close enough to Ghali to jump him on the track limits penalties. So we managed to pick up a 2-position advantage on our main championship rival. And our second race win of the season. Feels good to be getting wins. They came late, but it's good to get a couple now in this one, of course. Probably wouldn't have gotten the win if Fran Stuff doesn't retire. But top step of the podium, Albino Pedro P2, Ghali P3 with that fastest lap point. Helps minimize the damage, so only a 9-point swing as opposed to 10. Bonhomie in 4th, Onyx in 5th, that one kid in 6th. Bananarama, Oba Mendez, and Fran Stuff P9. Because of the lap he retired on, he is technically classified still. And will score a couple of points. But we have the finale coming up next week. Thank you all for joining me once again. I will see you all next time. Peace.